Taking a look today at the Ford starter relay installed on an air-cooled Volkswagen to improve the starter performance. This idea has been around a long time. It's in the idiot book. What is accomplished here, instead of the electricity having to go from the battery, which is under the back seat, up to the key in the front of the car, and then coming all the way back to the starter, which is quite near the battery, installing this relay, the current from the key only has to close the relay. Here's the current from the key, it closes the relay. Power from the battery goes straight to the starter. So the path from the battery to the starter is quite shorter. And that's why this makes a big improvement. Before I installed this, I would have to turn the key 4 or 5 times before anything happened. As soon as I installed it, I had absolutely reliable performance. Until recently, when I've noticed now the starter will engage but not turn over every time. And that's likely a starter problem or a connections problem. I also want to point out it's not 100% of the current going to the starter. It's just the current to throw the solenoid and push the pinion into engagement. The main power to the starter is in the original cable, which is quite short from the starter to the battery. Another thing I was able to do, since I have battery power right here, I wired my roof headlights to this point. So the path from the battery to the roof headlights, actually through relays, is as short as practical. So there's not a lot of extra wiring consuming energy. Now I'm running a generator right now. If I was running an alternator, and I switch back and forth, if I was running an alternator, I could connect the alternator also directly to this point, and then I would have an even shorter path from the alternator to the lights. But I can't do that with the generator. Perhaps I can make that the subject of another video if that's not clear. Another handy feature is I can charge the battery just by connecting the battery charger here, which is really handy. Versus taking the back seat out or crawling under the car, I can just hook the battery charger up to that point. So as I mentioned, recently I'm experiencing the starter engages, but it doesn't turn every time. So I happen to have already bought this Cole Hersey part. What attracted me to it is completely encased in plastic. Not that the other one seems to have suffered from being in the weather, but I just thought it'd be cool to have the switch completely encased in plastic. Notice it doesn't have the extra terminal. This would go to the coil installed on the Ford, so it has no purpose here. This one is missing that terminal, which is fine. Let me back up. This would make sense to hook up if there was a ballast on the ignition coil, but there's not, so it's not hooked up here. Doesn't matter if it's a Ford or not. If you've got a separate ballast on the ignition coil, you'd hook this up straight to the coil for more power during starting. So I may swap this on and see if it makes any difference. I believe today's problem is either in the connections or in the starter itself, but since I've already bought this, I thought I might try it out. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment. Thanks, and be sure and watch my other videos.